All right, guys, how's it going? Tonight we are doing this together, me and Joe. So, unfortunately, Mike and Jess had a lot going on with health department stuff that they're trying to finish up. I'm assuming for GAP certification that they're trying to get all that taken care of. So, Joe and I are flying high tonight, and he joined me at the very last minute. So, definitely thank him in the comments. I appreciate him coming out. It was kind of one of those things. I was looking for a co-host, and I thought, well, Joe's a pretty nice guy, so I figured bring him along for the ride. So, Joe, how's your week been? I saw you got your really cool little washing machine going.
Yeah, that's been good. And yeah, like Andy said, about 45 minutes ago, Andy reached out to me. And I was maybe a quarter way into my grocery shopping trip for the week and ran through the store like that old game show where, with the shopping cart running over grandmas and stuff. So it was a fun time to get home and unpacked and back on the computer. So I'll be here for a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate it very much, man. It'd be fun to have you on. So tonight we're going to be basically covering some stuff about the nutritional benefits of microgreens and also how they benefit both the local community and just food starved areas to a certain extent. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that tonight. So for me, this week was good. My mom, who actually has cancer up until Monday, had cancer surgery on Monday. She's went to Johns Hopkins, which worked out really well. We're lucky enough to have that 45 minutes away from our house. So she's in recovery mode. So any prayers and thoughts you guys can send, I would greatly appreciate that. So it was good to get past that. So she's, I guess, now 4 days cancer free, which is awesome. So hopefully that'll continue to go well. And we also got a lot of plumbing installed in our shop, the new place we're trying to move into this past week. Put in a triple sink, a hot water heater, a filtration system for our hoses, some hose connections, slop sink, all kinds of stuff, some backflow preventers. So it's been an expensive week, that's for sure, as far as plumbing goes, but we're moving along slowly but surely, thank God. So let's see. So the first segment we've got, go ahead, Joe.
I was just gonna say, I think it's real amazing when I think about the community we have here and how many growers have a personal connection to cancer. And
Yeah.
that's why so many of it. We're here today to talk about health benefits, right? And whether it's Mike and Jess, and the story you just shared, Andy, about the time that I decided to do this full time. My father-in-law was diagnosed, and so it's one of those things that's scary that's out there, but there's ways to combat that thing, and it's been proven through science. Sulforaphane and other phytochemicals found in many microgreens are great ways to help combat with all the other technologies we have just in combination. So that's the only thing, as you were talking and reflecting, just thinking, I'm like, man, like I bet you every one of the people here in this chat probably has someone that may have influenced their decision to go on this journey into microgreens because of that very reason.
Yeah, I know plenty of people that have actually gone through recovery and started a microgreen business as a result because they wanted to help spread the nutritional awareness of what it can do to help prevent that. And Mike, obviously, who's typically on here, been through his own bout with cancer. And thank God he's cancer free at this point too, which is awesome. So it can definitely help. So we're going to get into some of that stuff tonight. So the first section we're going to go through is kind of talking about how much of a nutritional powerhouse microgreens are. Obviously, there's been studies that have shown they're up to 40 times more nutritious, specifically broccoli. That's definitely kind of the king of the king as far as nutritional value goes. But I read a recent study, and I was trying to find it before I got on here. And Joe, you may have seen it, where there was some attributes of red acre cabbage where it was actually up to 240 times more nutritious. I was trying to locate that study before I got on here, but I couldn't find it, unfortunately, because this was all kind of last minute throwing this all together. So I don't know if you're familiar with that one or not, if you had heard about that.
Not offhand, and and it all depends on like what is the particular phytochemical or flavonoid or whatever it is. It's interesting to hear like people say 40 times more nutritious when we're talking about one of multiple types. And I think when there's an article I'm going to post here in a little bit where it talks about cilantro, and it's like up to 80 times on the lutein or something like that. So there's many times more per weight, which is one of the things whenever I'm talking with customers, I make sure to emphasize it's not by volume, but by weight. If you take, an ounce of microgreens as opposed to an ounce of a mature vegetable, that's really what we're talking about. And trying to be as specific as I can in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, definitely makes sense. I mean, I tend to tell people if they're looking at a 5, or 2-ounce pound pack of broccoli, for example, I'll tell them, hey, some of that stuff in there is actually the nutritional equivalent of 5 pounds of adult broccoli. When you actually do the math and calculate it up 40 times, so it's pretty impressive when they hear that. So definitely a nice thing. But yeah, Joe's got a huge list of different scientific studies that he's put together in a Google Drive, document that he's actually going to share with everybody. So he posted it in the chat, in the private chat anyway. So Joe, if you want to, go ahead and feel free to copy and paste that in there, and then that way people can look at that reference. So definitely thank him for providing that tonight. It's a pretty cool thing to be able to put together. And if you haven't watched
Well,
his videos on how he actually put together his tray washing machine, make sure you visit Joe's YouTube page. Joe, if you want to post it in the comments, that'd be awesome. And that way you can check out. He posted 3 different videos, one kind of showing the overall reasoning for it, and then one showing the build and getting into heavy detail, measurements and everything. And then the third one was kind of really showing it how it works. And then he posted pictures later in my group that showed all the different, how much trays he actually went through, which is pretty insane. What was it, 45 minutes? I think you did. It had to have been a couple
yeah.
hundred. Like,
Well, no, it wasn't a couple hundred, but it was probably around I don't know, more than 70 and third. It was 35 minutes of washing, about 10 minutes of setup and takedown. So
yeah,
just because where I have it is over a sink, it's not just like something that's gonna be stationary. It's a shared sink in the
yeah.
unit that I'm in. For some reason, my whenever I'm trying to post a link, it is saying failed to post. So I don't know if other
Oh,
people are
okay.
seeing it, but I can always throw it in the Facebook groups too. Maybe I'll just try
Yeah.
the direct link to the one paper that talks about nutrition too, rather than Google. So there's the one. This will get into this article itself is organized by the phytochemical or compound that is beneficial, and then it tells you which microgreens are highest. So it doesn't. If you're like, tell me about cilantro, you kind of have to hunt through this article, but it does see or it does give you a good overview, compound by compound, whether it's absorbic acid or lutein or other compounds. So that's the one that I found a few weeks ago that I thought was real helpful in understanding. I had some customers who had talked to me and they're like, "Yeah, do you know about the health benefits of cilantro microgreens?" I'm like, "No, I grow it because chefs love it." Um, and
Exactly.
they're like, "No, it's like one of the healthiest microgreens possible for you out there." And it's like, "Oh, well, let me go try and figure out why or what that is." And so, as I am prone to do, I went down many dark rabbit holes trying to find stuff. And and this was one of the articles that luckily Ohio State University's Master Gardener group had in their share drive. You can find anything on the internet these days, even if it's behind
Oh
a
yeah.
paywall from a scholastic journal.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's the one nice thing is a lot of colleges, that are out there now that students are doing, dissertations on actual, health benefits of microgreens. So they're doing scientific testing to actually back it all, and then they release those to the public, which is awesome. So they're actually scientifically based, not just a suggestion saying, "Hey, this microgreen's 100 times more nutrition," but I have, nothing to back it up with. So it's nice having that actual scientific data. And we've actually helped a couple different students, one from Morgan State University and another one from Penn State to actually do work on their actual dissertations about microgreens as well. So it's kind of neat. They're working on different studies to show like the best ways to store them and the best ways to keep them, so that way during travel they can get from point A to point B, even if it's long distance, and still be good for a couple weeks potentially. So it's kind of neat that there's people out there actually doing work on that kind of stuff. So definitely
Yeah, and
helps.
like I said in the Facebook group, I'll put it since it's not allowing me to link a Google sheet here per se. Um,
Yeah, and I
it,
might be able to
it
post that, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead and give that a whirl. It's just my kind of repository. There you go.
Yep.
Repository of all scholastic journals that I have found interesting personally for a variety of reasons, whether it's about fertigation, talking about liquid fertilizers are more effective with microgreens than solid fertilizers, whether it's about lighting. Obviously, I've done videos on lighting and stuff like that. There's one in there, I think, that talks about like natural lighting versus artificial lighting, which is a real interesting one when we start talking about both health benefits, distances and food deserts, things like that, because a lot of us can't
Yeah.
grow under natural lighting most of the year. But natural lighting microgreens are higher in some compounds, artificial lighting is higher in other compounds. It's real fascinating to be like, whoa, like depending on your lighting, you could have a different effect. And it's not that greenhouse grown ones are necessarily more beneficial or nutritious. They are in some regards, not so much in other regards.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'd be interested to dig through that information, so it'd be kind of neat to have. So yeah, definitely thank you for putting that all together and sharing that with us tonight. That's pretty awesome. So I guess the one big thing that comes in, and we've run into this too, is just having, the opportunity for nutrition in an urban environment, especially, because there's a lot of places that don't have access to farmland. There's not, they're big cities specifically, there's not a whole lot of places to actually grow unless you go way outside of the city. So that's the one benefit that microgreens brings to the table, is that it allows you to actually grow, in an urban environment, a true urban environment. I mean, we live in farm country for the most part where we are, but it's still technically considered urban farming because we're the way we're doing it, and we're kind of in a city. And we've actually won scholarships, based on bringing healthy food to an unhealthy environment. Overall, we got 15,000 fast food restaurants around us, so it's nice to have that benefit to be able to actually grow productive food that's nutritious, for the local community as well. So but yeah, it helps kind of like bridge some nutritional gaps, in urban communities. And the nice thing is it can also create a balanced diet for folks, because even if you're still eating a normal diet, is if you're at least adding, microgreens to your existing diet, you're at least, getting benefit from that. Because I talk to people all the time and they're like, wow, when I start eating microgreens, I'm not as hungry as I used to be. And it's like, yeah, because your body's actually getting what it wants. If you just eat a bunch of potato chips all day long, you're not getting hardly any nutrition. So your body just craves more food because it thinks it needs more. But if you eat something that's really good for you and full of nutritional value, then you don't have to eat as much, which is also a nice plus. So definitely works out good. So you have any thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just real fascinating thing about like the food desert thing, and um, living in the northern part of the U.S. And there's people in Canada further north than me, right? But being on the Canadian border in Montana, like our growing season outdoors is 6 months out of the year, and so to get fresh
Yeah.
produce, like that's not a thing for 6 months out of the year unless things are coming from Southern California or even further south. I'm always amazed when I see like. Because I have two kids, 4 and 7, I'm always buying strawberries, whether it's January. I don't buy them in June when mine are coming in my backyard, but like in the middle of the
Yeah.
winter and they're craving fruit, and I'm like, oh, that's coming from Chile. What? But that's like the reality, right? And so to be
Yep.
able to offer fresh produce, and like that's a big thing I've had a really good reception in my community with, just because we're able to grow year round when growing in an indoor environment. And like Andy said, it's like being able to occupy otherwise unoccupied spaces in our urban centers. I am literally in the middle of my downtown, in the heart of, I mean, it's not a large city. We're 70,000 people and within a few miles of our downtown, but I'm still able to occupy spaces that otherwise were going unoccupied. And I'm able, other than one restaurant, all of my clients, all my deliveries are within a mile and a half. That's a pretty incredible thing, to have people be able to come in. So I do like a CSA delivery drop off. And so they come to a centralized location. That's one of my restaurants that I deliver to. And it's a huge time saver for me. It's an efficiency boost. But it's also, yeah, like Andy said, being able to take, to dive in and to take unoccupied spaces in cities, and that would be, maybe it's more office spaces or maybe it's just going to be vacant. The one space I'm in, one of the spaces I'm, well, I guess, yeah, the one of the spaces I'm in now was vacant for almost 2 years prior to me occupying it. So, yeah, it's a nice way to, instead of adding infrastructure to places, like we can take infrastructure that's already there and modify it to meet our needs.
Yeah, and that's kind of similar to what we're getting ready to do. I mean, the space we're getting ready to move into, hopefully by the end of this month, is it was empty for at least probably 3 to 5 years. I honestly don't know how long, but when I went in to tour the place the first time, I mean, I went it's just a giant room and there's one office and one bathroom, and the office door was open and it was literally just cobwebs from ceiling to floor, left to right. It clearly had been empty for a while. So, it's nice for us to actually be able to take advantage of that and actually fill that space with something that's going to produce food for the local community. So it's definitely a nice plus for sure.
Well, and I
Um,
think this is something you're going to
and
get into, but I think it's really important for the freshness of a product, right? Like for
yeah,
something like microgreens that has 2 week, maybe 3 weeks, sometimes 1 week. Like I still have yet to get my amaranth to go much far past 1 week, and my basil's done within one. Like I don't know what people
Yeah,
are
basil's
doing, like
tough.
what magic people are weaving, but that's I tell my folks like you gotta use this stuff quick, and I'll see you next week, right? Like keep that recurring order
Yeah,
going. But um, it's just one of those things where it's like you get stuff to people so fast. I was just talking with one of my produce clerks this last week. He's like, did you cut what did he say? He was like, you just cut this stuff like yesterday or something. I'm like, no, I literally cut it an hour ago, packed it, and drove it over here. Like, I'm like, this stuff, if it's coming from California, you're already tacking on 3 to 5, 6 days possibly to get here
yep,
out of your 2 week shelf life. It's not going to last in your customer's fridge, right? So that's the importance to me of like being here, being local, like to offer the freshest thing. I got to find it. There was one article. I nerd out on stuff like this, and I got to relocate it because it was before I started keeping my spreadsheet there. That talked about the degradation of the nutrient value in microgreens, and it was a sharp cliff. Like after 5 days, they had lost 50% of their nutritional value. Um, I, I got to dig that one back up. Don't quote me on that, but there was something that was just like real
yeah,
downhill, real fast. It doesn't mean it doesn't feel good in your mouth and taste good and have like a lot of the stuff that people are desiring, but for those people who are purchasing for health reasons, like having it the same day or the next day is essential. So yeah,
yeah,
like to
and even
be in
even the
our
places
cities.
that do ship. Yeah, even the places that do ship out of, California and things like that, it's usually overnighted, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they'd harvested it the previous day. It could have been sitting on a shelf for 3, 4, 5, 6 days, before they even get it out the door. They're more worried about having large quantities in stock that when somebody calls and says, "Hey, I need 20 pounds of cilantro," they can mail it out the door. Doesn't really matter how old it is necessarily. So it definitely makes it interesting. And that's really what we were about to get into is just talking about, the low resource footprint in Joe's case, he's going a mile and a half and delivering to a bunch of different restaurants, which is incredible. So, I mean, your actual impact on the environment, your carbon footprint is super low because you're driving very short, distances. But it's also, his food from harvest to delivery is only going, 1.5 miles. So the gas he's consuming, the mileage he's having to drive, the time he's spending, is amazing. So that's really, and even if it's, a couple hours drive total, driving all the way around to deliver a bunch of places, which is kind of what we do at the moment, it's still way better than having them be put on a plane and flown across the United States or put on a giant, semi and driven across the United States. It definitely makes a big, big difference on the overall impact. And I think that's definitely important and something to highlight when you're talking about, microgreens to grocery stores and chefs and regular people as well, is just the environmental impact that you actually have by growing what you're growing is significant.
Two things. One, my favorite thing of the farmers market to be able to do is turn around and say, "You see that building right there, 2 blocks down the road? That's where I grow my microgreens." Like
Yeah,
literally, I am
that's
two
awesome.
blocks from my market stall, and with a clear line of vision. The other one is yeah, like what is the environmental impact of shipping stuff overnight? Like if it's not
Yeah.
coming on a truck, if it's getting overnighted, that means it's coming on a plane to get
Yep.
microgreens. That is just the definition of insanity and inefficiency and like
Yep.
burning up our planet like that. What, why, like that is,
Well,
yeah,
and the
I don't know,
irony
don't
is,
get me
I mean,
started, but
prior to even getting on the plane, it's got to be put in a truck, driven to the airport, loaded on a plane, flown on a plane, and then when the plane lands, it's got to put on another truck to drive to a distributor, most likely, and then that distributor is going to put it on one of their trucks and then take it to wherever it's going. So by the time it arrives, it's already on 4 different vehicles potentially, at least. Whereas we could just load it in the back of a car or in a van or whatever and drive it ourselves and be there in 20 minutes. So it's definitely a nice impact to have. But yeah, without a doubt, it's definitely that's something you need to talk about too. If you're not talking about that to your customers already, make sure they understand that this is how important local food is, especially local vegetables, local produce, local meats, things like that. You're getting fresh stuff that's insanely fresh. But it's also, you're supporting the local community. You're putting your dollars back into the local community and not having it go all over the place instead. So it goes right back into your
Yep.
town, your county, your state, ultimately. So it just helps kind of support that entire process, because obviously, if you're buying something from out of state in any way, shape, or form, you're supporting that particular state, and they may use some of that money to help create grants, for farms that are in that state instead of your own state. So it's just some things to think about. I mean, they get funding from those kinds of things. So but yeah, and I think a big piece, is just the urban farming side of it, is just how, it's space efficient. You're using very little water, to actually grow the plants, which is definitely important. So it's ideal for urban farming for sure. And then basically you're limited. A lot of cities are limited on gardening space, like we mentioned earlier, so it makes it really tough. If there's not farmland out there, you're either gonna have to drive a good long distance, or you can grow them yourselves indoors. So it's very attractive to big city people that aren't used to getting fresh produce. They're going to the grocery store, they're getting something that came from God knows where, potentially from a local farm, but even that local farm may be 45 minutes to an hour away. So, um, ideally, just get that word out, that you're actually doing things locally. It definitely makes a big difference. And just the global impact that you're having as far as the environment goes. So, but yeah, so then you've got integration with urban life, essentially. So, microgreens obviously enhance community gardens as a whole. There's educational programs that you can offer as well. And, the aesthetics that you get, you're fostering community engagement, you're, basically pushing sustainable practices. All those things are really important when you're trying to actually get in, integrate with farm life that's in your area. And it's important to get out there and talk about it. Have you done any public speaking about your greens at all, Joe?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I've talked with elementary schools. I've talked with our county library's youth leadership club. I've talked.
Nice.
Let me see. I mean, I'd say every day I'm at the farmers market, I'm doing outreach for microgreens and just farming and local agriculture in general. But I mean, those are the big ones that just leap to mind. I'm also here in next month. I'm going to do additional stuff beyond microgreens. But I'm going to be doing a workshop with one of our local nurseries where microgreens are going to be a part of it, but it's to help me launch my new product line with worm castings, which all my microgreens go to make worm castings. So I like to say I have the
Yeah.
best, most nutrient dense fed worms on the planet, because I don't know who else is feeding like straight nothing but microgreens to their worms. So,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Really not too many
I
people.
definitely do a ton of outreach whenever I can with just different groups. Like there's no limit. Talk with schools, talk with gardening clubs, talk with. I've done a ton of tabling at my local one of my grocery stores that I'm in, both giving samples to people and then also just informing them and yeah, just talking about all of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a great way to get stuff out there. And if you're not already in, some of the Facebook groups that we have out there, it's definitely important to get in there. I mean, people like Joe are very active in a lot of the groups that both, I run, and Robert Meredith, who used to be on here, he runs. And there's several out there that are really good. I would say the microgreens entrepreneurs and Robert's group are probably the two best as far as getting really good quality answers from actual experts who are literally doing this for a living, potentially even full time in most cases. So I'll post some of the links to the groups in the chat. So the first one I'm going to post is just the Microgreens Entrepreneurs Group. That's really driven around being a microgreens business owner. That's really the goal behind it. It's not necessarily a place to learn how to grow different things or ask questions about, is this mold or is this root hairs? That group is really going to be more for our microgreens for beginners group that we have, and that's another great spot. We've got a lot of experts in that group as well that reply very heavily. Joe's definitely very involved. There's another guy named Michael Bergonzi that's very involved. Myself and Mike Hicks are obviously very involved, so we're all commenting and liking and all that kind of stuff all the time. And the idea is just to kind of really help new people get started. And then when they realize, okay, now I'm past that point, I don't have to ask all these basic questions anymore, then you can jump into the entrepreneurs group, or you can jump in there and just learn in the meantime. But, that's really why we want to have those two options out there, just to be safe. And if you haven't gotten into our farm flow structure yet, if you don't know what farm flow is, we basically, designed this software in-house. We started with it about 4 years ago. And it's just been tailored over the years to work for us. And then back in November, I guess it was a little bit earlier than that, but November was the official launch where we actually pushed it out for users to be able to use. So it allows you to manage every aspect of what you would need to do down to recurring orders, subscriptions. You can basically set up, it tells you what you need to plant, what you need to soak, what you need to move to the light, what you need to black out, what you need to harvest, who you need to harvest for. Allows you to organize your deliveries. So when delivery day arrives, you can actually easily, map it right to Google Maps, send it right to your phone. That's just a small portion of what it can do. It's amazing. We have a 30-day trial that we're always offering. So I'll post a link to that in there as well into the chat. So feel free to
Oh,
get set up with that. And later tonight, you may have a chance of winning 3 months or 6 months for free of FarmFlow. But regardless, we always do a 30-day trial, and we don't take credit card or anything up front. So it's risk-free from the very beginning.
I mean, the only thing I'll say is like of all the web-based things I've ever been involved in, it probably has the most responsive web developer I've ever had. If you're like, Andy, what the heck did I do? Like my stuff is jacked up. Why are my harvest days and my sowing days not lining up where I need them to?
Yep.
Or if you have something that's a legit bug, like you're like, I did this thing and now it's not showing me I have any trays to harvest, but I got 4 sitting on the shelf. What happened? Oh, did you fill in your seed lot, or whatever it may be. So,
Yep. Yeah.
like Andy's super responsive. Just hit him up on Facebook. I'm going to just make sure everyone knows to get you to blow up your inbox, Andy, on that one. But I know I've had
That's
some
okay.
difficulty and Andy's got me straightened out. And now, I mean, it's definitely when I started using FarmFlow, like it helped me. It was just a brain dump. Before that, I had everything in my brain. Mike Hicks has talked about, going from spreadsheets to whiteboards to to seed leaf, then to farm flow. Like I just went straight to farm flow from my brain. And being a
Yeah.
one person operation, that was okay, but I was getting to the point where it was getting really hard to juggle all that. And then I'm setting up myself with trying to develop my policies, my SOPs, things like that, to be able to bring someone on. And like I was like, I need to not have this in my brain. I need to have it where someone else can follow along in a really
Yep.
simple format. And so that really helped me get to where I can. And then it was just like amazing, like to have a pick list, on your harvest days, to just be like, oh, I need this many trays. Let me take a whole rolling rack down the aisle and just start pulling stuff rather than making 10 trips. Oh, I need one more. Oh, I need one more. Oh, I need one more.
Yep.
Just to just have that all, like it started saving me hours of time, like right off the bat. So, I mean, for the price, like you're not going to find another thing that's going to give you that much of a return on investment.
Yeah. I
Andy did
appreciate
not
that very
ask
much.
me to be a living ad on that one, but I will today.
No, I appreciate that very much. I mean, it's a lot of work. We still have a long ways to go. It does a lot already. But there's definitely some improvements I want to make over time, and I'm working on it all the time. I added a couple little minor things this afternoon. We're getting ready to do a server upgrade tonight on the database, so that'll happen at 3 o'clock in the morning. I posted in the FarmFlow Facebook group, so if you're not in there already as well, I'll post that. So if you're a user in the system or you're interested or just want to ask questions, feel free to join that group that I just posted in the chat. That's where I post updates, where I post, things that may be happening, things of that nature. So it's a
I,
great tool. We've been using it the entire time since we started. It looked way worse when I had it by myself because it didn't have to look nice. So I had to really give it a facial upgrade completely to, get it to look good for you guys. So a lot of extra work, but I wanted to make sure it was affordable for everybody. That's why we kept the price at what we did. I've had a lot of people reach out and they're like, you could charge way more for this, but it's not that big of a deal to me. I would rather have people be able to use it successfully and have the industry as a whole be better as a result, and everybody's doing things efficiently. That was really the idea behind it. So, all right, so we punched that down the list. So let's talk about kind of economic, opportunities with microgreens. So it is a profitable venture, and I want people to understand that. I mean, both Joe and I are literally doing this full time. This is our full time job, and that's all we're doing. So I need you to understand that it's possible to get to that point. It may seem like it's a giant uphill battle, from the beginning to actually get from just starting off, having your first tray, your first 3 trays, whatever. But if you do it intelligently and you focus on, good marketing, telling a good story, we've talked about this in past podcasts, reaching out to local people, getting into local groups on Facebook. It's a great way to kind of get your name out there and allow you to kind of grow that market demand, in your area. So that's definitely a big piece. And then obviously you can, work your way into grocery stores and restaurants and food and produce distributors in the long run. And obviously, direct to customers is a great place to start. Farmers markets, things like that. Great place to kind of tee off your whole entire thing. So we started at our house, as everybody knows, doing farmer market right out front of our house. It was in the depths of COVID. So we had to encourage people to come out. We spent money on Facebook to, promote the fact that we were going to be doing it. And here we are, just under 4 years later at 32 grow racks and getting ready to move into a 4,000 square foot space. So if you do it right and you provide good customer service and good product, it can go quick. So give us a little bit about your success story there, Joe. What got you to be full time?
Hustle your ass off, right? Like
Yeah.
that's really what it's
Yep.
all about. My first 2 years, yeah, no, the dog's about to go crazy with his dog toy in here. My wife's coming down the stairs staring at me.
It's quite all right, man.
Sorry. Yeah, life is catching up to me here. So, like, I had. It's not easy when you're trying to do this part time, right, on top of a full time job. I
Yeah.
was easily 60 hours a week between my full time job. I'd be going from 7 a.m. with my kids until 11 p.m. in the microgreen room. I'd go into my microgreens room as soon as my kids were down to bed at 8 p.m. And do that. And then I would be delivering on my lunch hours during the week. So to restaurants. Like it's not easy trying to juggle all that. And that's when I kind of made the decision that I needed to do this change for my family and for myself to kind of just jump into it. I will say my journey has been an unusual one in that my first sales were to a grocery store.
Oh,
So
wow.
how that happened was being in Montana, my first two farmers markets were canceled. And so I had a full rack of microgreens sitting there with nothing to do with them. And no, and I had everything in germination for the next week, right? Like I had to move them, so I just took in samples to my two local mom and pop grocery stores and said, "Hey, would this be something you're interested in carrying them?" One of them was already carrying microgreens from a distributor, and they said, "Yeah, we'll gladly carry yours as long as you're growing organically." I'm like, "Good thing." That's what I knew I was going to be going towards the organic route anyway, and so I had organic
Yeah.
practices. You can sell under $5,000 if you're following the National Organic Program as organic and get into organic stores, only stores like that. And so I was able to start with them. And then as soon as they started rocking and rolling, like I still had the farmers market to do. And within a month, I had a second rack added because I had to have a second rack for the farmers market because I already had a rack sold to the two grocery stores weekly. So that's just kind of where that took off. And then from there, it was just working nonstop. Saturdays, farmers market, late at night, early in the morning, whenever I could. It's a lot of hustle.
Yeah.
I'm not.
And
There's
that's a
no
joke.
sugarcoating that.
No, that's a joke I always tell people. I say, I left my 40-hour a week job so I could work an 80-hour a week business. I mean, it's more or less you're 7 days a week. There's no days off. And it's always funny because and even if you're not physically at the farm, you're still always, thinking about it. It's always in your mind, like, oh, what can I do? I need to get back to this customer. I need to do that. I need to remember to post this thing, or whatever. And it's like, it's tough, so it can definitely be all consuming if you allow it to be. And especially if you're married, you need to make time for your kids. You need to make time for your wife, without a doubt. And that's one thing, that my wife and I are really good at is we purposely set aside time, to make sure, because I mean, it can easily take over your life for sure if you allow it to. So we always make sure we make that quality time. But yeah, it definitely can be crazy, but that's always the joke is that, we left a 40-hour week job to, work an 80-hour week business, but all part of the fun. But I would much rather do that than work for somebody else is what it boils down to. You have the freedom, if you need a day off, you can go do whatever you have to do. You don't have to worry about missing your kids' events, all that kind of stuff. It definitely opens up just a additional world that you may not have been familiar with. So it's definitely a nice plus. But so yeah,
Yeah.
and if you haven't already, Oh, good.
I was gonna say the flexibility is what really has me
Yeah.
there. Like we have a special needs child and lost our after school care and had multiple out of school suspensions last fall. And to be able to just like flex and be like, you know what, I can go in after 8 p.m. to go water, to go plant, after kids in bed.
Yeah.
Like I can go back to that. Right now, I'm no longer doing that. If it doesn't fit within my 8:30 in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is outside of it was is school hours. Like I'm not at the farm, I'm not doing anything. So that's really what the benefit for me and my family has been, is just like to free up my time that I did not have in my state job.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to mention too, to those who are on the chat, if you show up as Facebook user, we just had a post that shows up as that. If you want to get on the contest that we're going to be doing later on, you got to go to streamyard.com/Facebook. Facebook unfortunately has to allow a connection to StreamYard. So unfortunately, you're just going to show up as Facebook user. It won't allow you to actually enter in for the contest that we give away at the end of the day. So, or the end of the podcast anyway. So if you haven't already, put in #thumbcast. That will actually get you into the giveaway that we're going to do later on. That's the only way you can enter, is if you actually put in #thumbcast. So make sure you do that. And if you have any questions about what we're talking about, post those into the comments as well. We're going to go through some of those later on, do a live Q&A at the end of the podcast as well. And also, I wanted to bring up the Harvest members. We want to thank them. This is all through Itty Bitty Micro Farms YouTube page, obviously. So they obviously appreciate you guys, being part of this, and it helps support the channel, helps, pay for things like their StreamYard, account and things of that nature. So definitely appreciate you guys that have been on there for a while. Definitely good stuff. And also wanted to really quickly just play a little ad about my coaching. Elevate your microgreens operation with personalized one-on-one business coaching. Our recorded sessions meet you right where you are as we dive deep into sales, marketing, and everything in between, saving you months, if not years, of time. We can teach you how to sell to chefs, grocery stores, farmers market attendees, weekly subscribers, and distributors. We can also grow with you and help you scale up, expand into commercial space, and hire quality employees. Invest in your future and build a thriving microgreens business, not just a green thumb. Book a time with me today and let's unlock the full potential of your microgreens business. Nice. That's a handsome guy. Anybody notice that sweet Superman shirt that he had on too? So if you're interested in any business coaching, we've helped people all over the world. Just put a link in the comments down there. So feel free to book a time with me. I mean, we can get a lot done in 30 minutes. You'd be very surprised. So don't feel like you have to get a long, 1 hour or 2 hour, 4 hour, whatever session. We can get a lot done in 30 minutes. So yeah. All right, cool. So let's move on. So our next segment, we're going to be talking about food deserts, which we talked about before a little bit. We can get into a little heavier detail on them now, but really the idea is, if you don't know what a food desert is, it's more or less an area that just doesn't have access to good nutritional value, is really what it boils down to. So we're basically trying to help fill those voids by being microgreen growers to actually be able to provide nutritional valued food into an area that typically doesn't have it, unfortunately. So it's definitely a nice way to kind of bridge that fresh food gap. And you can also oftentimes work with different local organizations as well to help kind of, get the word out. You can either work with businesses and kind of go in and actually have them do like a weight loss challenge or a nutritional, changing challenge or something like that, and help work with them. You can also work with nonprofits, which are a great option as well. So if you have like extra samples or an extra tray or two at the end of the week, you can pack those up, donate them to a local food bank of some kind, and you can write that off at the end of the year, which is a beautiful thing. So we do that every year. We've worked with one particular place here in Elkton over the last, I think, 2 years. Ever since we opened up the shop in Elkton, we've been donating everything we had left over to them, which has worked out great. The first year we donated about $10,000 worth of microgreens, which was awesome. And I will say, like, most of the people that attended were homeless, and they greatly prefer fresh produce. Doesn't matter if it's lettuce, doesn't matter if it's microgreens. It's just something they can't really get typically, because if somebody gives them money to go buy food, they don't have the option in most cases to get a fresh salad, or something like that. They're usually going to end up with fast food, unfortunately. So they definitely really enjoy, being able to eat fresh produce. Do you guys do anything, Joe, with any local food places to be able to give out samples and stuff to people?
Yeah, I mean, we do definitely do a couple things. One is with our local food bank. If I have extras, I definitely take them down there. The food bank actually comes to the farmers market, and if there's anything extra at the end of the farmers market, since I do live cutting, I just pack it all up right then and there, and give it to them, and they write me a donation receipt. Again, keep it for the end of the year for tax purposes.
Yeah.
And then also there's um, I'm registered with our state SNAP program, and WIC program, so
Yeah.
women and infants, and then the supplemental nutrition assistance program, and then there's also a seniors food benefit program here in Montana, and I'm registered with all them. And so any of those people, they usually have vouchers or things like that, and they can come up and get product. And oftentimes I'm like, keep your voucher, take the micros, and go have a happy life. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't hurt
Yeah.
me to lose a one pack to someone who's hurting a lot more than I am. Then the other thing I do too, because I am for people who are aware of the program, I'm an AmeriCorps alum. And I often, if AmeriCorps alumni are walking through the farmers market, I'll just throw them a pack of microgreens, be like, hey, enjoy, because I know they're on really tight stipends too. So yeah, like anytime I have a chance, like just spread the wealth, right? Spread the
Yep.
nutrition.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, we've definitely given some stuff away, and I think probably the most unique one we ever gave away. We were at this very, very small market. It was almost a borderline waste of time for us. And a guy rides up on a bike, just a regular bicycle, and he's got a bunch of stuff strapped to it. And he's like, "Yeah, I just really need some food." And he was going to pay me, no problem. But when he told me what he was doing, he was actually riding across the country, literally, and to go all the way up to I think Washington State is where he was going to stop, and I don't remember what he was raising money for. And I wish I remembered off the top of my head, but it was some really awesome foundation, basically. And, so he's like, yeah, I need, just trying to get some healthy stuff and stop in and, talk to local people. And I was like, dude, here, take whatever you want. I was handing him loads of stuff to take with him. So that way he had really good nutrition to actually be biking across the US. So it was really a neat experience with that kind of things. I thought that's probably the most unique person we've given stuff away to at this point that I can think of.
I I didn't give it away, but I sold it to some van life people, camper van people who just like live
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
a van, and it's actually
Nice.
funny because they're like one of my top Instagram followers now, and they did a thing where they took one of my grow kits and like had the microgreens on their dashboard underneath the Grand Teton, or things like that, and they're often
Nice.
like liking my stuff on Instagram and whatnot. And so it's really funny, like to just make those connections wherever you can. Farmers markets are amazing for that reason alone.
Yeah.
It's just like awareness and making connections, and you don't know where your stuff is going to end up.
Yeah, and what was neat is they, after we gave him the samples for free, they basically had just started filming a video that they were gonna, basically promote throughout the whole country as they were going across the nation. So they ended up actually, as a result, filming, our market, and we got to talk about our microgreens and all that kind of stuff, which was kind of neat. So we actually got free marketing out of it to a certain extent. Not really necessarily local marketing, but it's still better than nothing. And anything, it got the word out about microgreens being a thing. So it definitely worked out good. But yeah, it's good stuff. And I definitely want to thank Detroit Mike, who yet again has gifted a itty bitty micro membership to somebody. So looks like Marla Largent ended up actually winning. So Marla, welcome. You're now considered part of our little group here. Thank you to Detroit Mike. So Detroit Mike's always awesome about doing that. We appreciate that very much, man. Very generous guy. And it was neat to see him in the Gap program as well, to finally actually see him in person. And it seemed like a cool guy. So I mean, so far all the experiences I've had with him, he's been awesome. All right, so let's get into kind of advocacy and community development. So we talked about speaking to places that like schools and libraries and colleges and high schools, and we have a tech school that we've spoken at a couple times as well. And it's really important because it's easy to educate a whole room of people all in one shot. And oftentimes, they're already interested in farming to a certain extent, or they probably wouldn't be there. We have a local farm museum that we spoke at. I don't know how many times at this point, and it's always a great group. They're always really interested. It's a great way to hand out samples, hand out literature, potentially even get customers out of it. Subscribers, things of that nature is awesome too. So it's definitely something you want to pursue if you're not pursuing that already. And oftentimes you can get a hold of your local Department of Agriculture, the person who's running that segment of it, as far as like getting the names out for farmers. They're a great resource for that, as far as giving you grant opportunities and also giving you opportunities to kind of self promote your local business. Do you guys have somebody that you work with, Joe, that's out there that kind of does that from the Department of Ag side of things?
Oh yeah, for sure. So in Montana, we have the food and agricultural development centers. And so there's someone that like literally like tells me when there's grant opportunities specifically open for us. There should be one launching here in the next few weeks from USDA, the Value Added Produce Program. But yeah,
Yeah,
like definitely like they're a huge benefit. And as you were saying, like community of development too, and advocacy, like a big thing that we do is every year our local neighborhood center has a big fundraiser, and we're a big sponsor of that fundraiser, both in cash donations. We do a silent auction gift, which this year I did one of my CSA memberships, and then I went around to all of my restaurants and said, "Hey, this thing's $120 value. Can I get 5 of my restaurants to pitch in a $25 gift card?" And they were all like, "Done, like easy."
nice.
And so boosted that up to like a $200 value package. And then like the fun thing too is then I donate live trays and flowers and stuff like that to actually be used in the cooking competition. And so they're talking about that when it's plated and going up in front of people. And so there's a lot of awareness in that room of people. And what, I'm there as well, and I'm talking to those people. I have people coming up. I'm wearing my NRS Microgreens T-shirt, and they're coming up and chatting with me about what it is I do and stuff. So, and then as a kickback to me, I got 2 new subscribers to my CSA out of it because they had bid on my
Nice.
package for the CSA and they did not win. And then they contacted me because I put my pile of business cards right next to the thing. And then like the next day they were reaching out. So it's definitely like find those ways to really elevate your business and engage with your community. I mean, because that's the benefit. Like Andy was saying, like we are local. These dollars are staying in your community, and that shows them not only are they staying in the community, but they are staying into high needs areas of your community. Yes, we're paying taxes. Yes, we're making sponsorships and donations. Yes, we're out there handing out free packages to people who can't otherwise afford it. Like we're here to support our community because that's really what it's about.
Yep, 100%. And I cannot even tell you how many opportunities and how many doors have opened as a result of working with my Department of Ag people in my county specifically. They have gotten us into events that has led to huge customers. I mean, not just small, but like distributors and talking directly to restaurants. We've got an event coming up next month where we're literally going to be at basically a tasting event, and it's I don't even know how many chefs there, like 20 or 30 chefs, and we've offered, same thing like Joe did, to basically say, hey, we'll give you whatever microgreens you want for free. Use them on all your plating, and then what happens? I've got direct contact with all of those chefs. Every single one of them are going to see our greens, experience our greens, see how nice they look on their plates. And then what's going to happen from there? The hope would be, that we can follow up with them or they'll follow up with us and we can land them as clients. So, there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there. The event that we have now attended 2 years in a row. We just attended a couple weekends ago. It's a humongous event. I mean, I literally came home with a giant stack of business cards still sitting here. These are all restaurants, distributors, whatever. So, huge amount of leads that just came out of that event. And I would have never known about it if I didn't talk to my local Department of Ag, person that's out there to help, promote farms. So find out who that is in your area, get them on the phone, treat them to lunch, whatever you have to do, and we did that in the county that we're located in now, our farm is, and the person that we've always worked with here in this county, she doesn't even work in that Department of Ag anymore, but she still made contact with the county that we're going to be moving our farm to make sure that that person knew who we were, and we've already started a conversation, and they've already, even though we're not even there yet, have already opened doors for us to be able to talk to different places and different ideas. So it's definitely worth reaching out. I would highly encourage you to do it, and it's just a great way to kind of help that reach into your community even further. But yeah, so then you definitely want to encourage advocacy. That's a hard word to say. Just trying to basically generate support for urban agriculture in your area. It's definitely a big piece, and you can do that through your community, through education, through talking to people, and just create. It basically creates a conducive environment for microgreen farming to grow in your area, which is important. And then you're also basically promoting urban food security, because obviously everything being super local, hopefully being grown correctly, you're basically just promoting that locality and that really quick access to really healthy food. Um, so, and you can take action either by starting your own grow operation, and kind of building microgreens in your area. Or if you know a local microgreen provider, then, feel free to purchase from them if you have to, or help kind of promote them, share their information, share their posts, whatever you have to do to kind of help build up that environment, that community. It's definitely important. So, and again, if you haven't done, hashtag Thumbcast in the comments, make sure you do that. That's going to be a giveaway towards the end. I have no clue how many people are watching because I have no idea where to find that. This is my first time running the thing by myself. So I literally had to learn all this 10 minutes before we came on. So we do have 12 entries at the moment. So if you're on here and you haven't done it yet, hashtag Thumbcast in the comments. I'll highlight Legendary Greens. He just put his in not too long ago. So that's all you got to do is just put a comment just like that. Hashtag Thumbcast, and that'll get you into the contest. So, any last minute comments there, Joe, before we get into the Q&A?
Can I put my Thumbcast in? Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Definitely. Yeah, and if you haven't already, like I said, go check out Joe's YouTube page. He's got, especially if you grow in cocoa coir, he's got a lot of great videos on how to work with coir directly as far as what you're growing. And I mean, by far, at least from our standpoint, because we don't use cocoa coir anymore, but his tray washing machine 100% got my mind moving, because I thought, how can I make this into something that's two-sided and all this? Definitely got my brain moving for sure. So it's people like Joe that actually take advantage of that, opportunity and be the first one out there. I mean, not technically the first. He took some inspiration from other guys, but to really put himself out there heavily, with his version and his iteration. And I'm sure he'll make improvements to it over time, as we all will. But it's kind of like you're watching product development live, essentially. Somebody will take Joe's work and add something extra to it, and then Joe will be, oh, that's cool, maybe work it into his own piece. So it's neat to have something like that out there. So Joe, I really do appreciate that, and I can assure you in the next 6 months I'll be putting something together, because we already need it. The amount of trays that we're going through. So definitely thank Joe in the comments. Follow him on Facebook, subscribe to his channel on YouTube, things like that, and definitely keep an eye on what he's doing. He's a good dude.
Yeah, I just dropped the link to the playlist for the tray washer there in the comments. So
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so make sure you subscribe to his channel. He's always posting good content about that kind of stuff, and he really gets heavy into the details, which I really like, because if you're interested in that level of detail, then he definitely hits that on the head every single time.
I
All right.
recently, when I fired up my Patreon page, and my dog's gonna go crazy here. I'm sorry. Um,
That's okay.
I called it like 501. I feel like there's a lot of 101 resources out there, even like 201, and if stuff gets a little wiggy, then you're like reaching out to Andy and Mike, and it's like I really want to cover like how do you really like take this thing and run with it? How do you really build this as
Yeah.
a business? How do you think about leaning up your farm? If you haven't read the Lean Farmer or listened to it, give that a good listen to, because it will just like make you stop in your tracks and be like, I am walking in through my 300 square foot room way too much. It's not a huge room, but I'm
Yeah.
already walking too much, and that's really where I want to be at, is like, how can we improve those efficiencies? I got a ton of videos. I just need that fire under my butt and a little bit of time, and maybe a tray washer is going to help me buy some time where I can get some more of that stuff, like the fertilizer injector up there, and other content that I have. So I intend to be more active, but we'll just see how life goes.
And I'd be willing to bet more subscribers would lead to more activity. So if you're not already, get out there and subscribe to Joe's channel. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and put up this little outro video here. So if you're on live, then stick around for the Q&A. We're going to do that right after this. And if not, we'll see you in the next one. All right, guys. So we're going to get into the Q&A. So if you haven't posted your questions already into the comments below, make sure you do that. And that way Joe and I can answer the questions. I know it's going to take a little bit of extra time